Now just like introductions and like you said, we're live and we're having fun.
We are
Yeah,
live. I
indeed
like
we
it.
are. Let me see if I can retweet the thing you shared.
Yeah,
But
sure, sure.
welcome Tim. Welcome to the Strapi Twitch. Sorry, Strapi YouTube. It's a
Thank
pleasure to
you.
have you. I've been watching a lot of your stuff from like the Vue days. I know you're still very active in Vue, and it's very nice to finally get to do something with you.
Oh,
So
thank you, man. I appreciate it. Like,
yeah,
ever since I moved, like, I'm not in Paris anymore, but when I moved to Paris,
yeah,
I used to work with some startups in Station F, which is where like lot of the like the startups in Paris are all located, and I think Strapi was there as well. And I knew I wanted to do something with it, but somehow I didn't up until
yeah.
like today. And
This time,
I loved
this
it.
time for everything. Yeah,
Exactly.
same.
And it was so good. Like I just went through the setup like locally running it and it just worked in one command and I add my account and done. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
That's. I feel like that should be our tagline. Strappy, it just works.
Ooh, until it
Uh,
doesn't, right? So be
until it
careful.
doesn't. But yeah, I mean, when you're a developer tool, that's how things are. Everything
Yeah,
works until
exactly.
they don't. And so yeah, we'll probably have to be careful with that. I see a couple of people have joined. I
Oh,
see
cool.
Adrien, who's on our team. I see Pierre. Welcome. It's good to have you all. Let us know where you're from. You seem to have a fan, Tim.
Oh,
Adrien
I
says, "Good
see.
to see
I
you."
like it. From the username, I don't know who it is, but I still like it.
Yeah, I think back. Think back. I'm sure you'll figure out who
Oh,
they
for
are.
sure.
22 Pickle, good to see you. Yeah, we're just talking about
Oh,
Strappy.
I know who it is. It's Adrien, I think. Oh, we'll
Yeah, it
chat
is
later, I
Adrien.
think. Yeah, we'll chat later.
Okay, now you remember. Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's it's good that we're finally working on something. And yeah, I'm excited to see more about Uniform because well, I would love to say a little birdie told me about composability, but literally everyone's talking about it. And it's something that we're also really investing a lot in at Strapi, given how we work and how we plug into everything. So when I saw you do that Twitter thread about composability, I was like, whoa, this is
Oh,
exactly how
yeah.
we think about things. We need to do something.
And do we think the same way, in your opinion? Because I
Mostly,
took
I
it
think.
quite far, to be fair.
Do you want to give people context, by the way, for like a summary of what you were um, talking about with respect to composability? I think that would just help with everyone.
Yeah, so let's talk about a bit more of the basics. So I work at a company called Uniform, and
Mm,
at Uniform, we are really deep into this whole composability thing, but it's actually a little bit wider because since we've worked on this and during these like 2, 3 years that we've started this, the world has changed, even technology wise, like quite a lot actually. And we are now noticing that everybody is doing the composable thing, like the Mac Alliance thing with like the SaaS systems. You put them together like a puzzle, you compose some stuff.
yeah.
And Uniform kind of sits somewhere around that and helps you to make that composability actually work. Because what
Okay.
you see a lot of the times is that people kind of choose the tools that they know, the tools that they like, and they just put them together and then think, I now have a composable system. But is it? It's actually really hard to put them together and make it work, especially when you start to scale.
Yeah.
Because how are you just going to integrate everything together with the code and then hope content editors are happy?
Yeah.
Or if you then need another CMS instance because it's such a big project we're working on, will you then reintegrate everything in there as well?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you preview things that come from your e-commerce, that from your DAM, from your personalization engine, from your
Mm.
multiple CMS? Like it's hard stuff. And
Honestly, it
so
is. But
it
before we
is,
go,
isn't it?
I love where this is going. But before we go any further,
Yeah.
how would you describe composable? Just for anyone
Oh,
who has no
yeah.
idea what
Let's step back a little
composable
bit.
means. Yeah, let's start with the basics. I have let's say I have no idea what composable is. How would you explain it
um,
to me like I'm five?
I think I'm gonna have to use a few sentences here, but that's
Yeah,
because
let's
this
go.
shit is so new. And so basically, what we okay, let's start from the beginning, and I'll try to explain it as I think it is, and try not to go too long. So back in the day, and that's not too long ago, when you would build a website, no matter what type, it generally came from one big box, right? Think WordPress. It does it
So
all.
so the
It,
monoliths.
exactly.
That's where
Think
we're at.
Shopify. It's
Yeah.
amazing. You click a button, you have stuff, and your time to market is really fast. And for a long, long, long time, that was perfect. But then us developers started to realize, yeah, but I cannot really do the things I want because I'm stuck to that monolith. It keeps me in a certain direction, but I might want to go in another direction. And so, fueled by what developers wanted, companies started to realize, yeah, but they don't want the whole front end to come with a CMS and with all the other things, right? And so, what you started to see is that people started to build companies that were smaller. And Strapi is a perfect example of that. It is a smaller scope and it does just that thing amazingly well. But then
Thank
if
you.
you just have that, you don't have the other things yet. You don't have your front end, you don't have your commerce or whatever. And so where the term composable comes from is that you actually choose the things that you like and you compose your architecture with those puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of the base of it. And then where I was going a little bit with before is to actually make that puzzle work with the correct composability, then it gets a bit harder because you get all
Mm,
these in between variants where now huge companies that have done this monolith thing for many, many years, they realize, oh, we're going to have to be like headless now and composable. And they just split off stuff from their monolith and call it composable, but it's super tightly coupled. You need to understand that system to use the tools. Is that really composable? Not really, right? What do you think?
no. Well, when you say like composable and you mention, plugging things, I'm thinking Legos,
Oh yeah, 100%.
like each Lego piece has like a bottom and a top, right? And they're sort of like interchangeable. You sort of have to have standards for how things fit into each other, right? And I think if you have things like, if you have one piece that only really fits onto another piece, it's not it I mean it's a Lego piece, but it isn't really as dynamic as you want it to be, and so it
Yeah.
doesn't really fit into that composable bucket. And so
Yeah. What you see now is that
mm,
people start to actually take these Lego pieces and take a little bit of glue and then put them together so they kind of stick because that's what they're used to.
but that
But then
doesn't
it's,
scale well.
yeah, and it's really hard to take them apart or to change one thing.
Yeah.
And we now all realize that it's much harder to build this stuff than we thought. Because if you just want to change one little thing, all the companies that build these composable blocks need to have a smaller scope. But you
Mm.
just got a huge investment. And these people expect you to have a bigger scope to make more money. How does that work? It's pretty interesting, right?
But you see, I mean, I don't want to get like too in deep on you when we and start defining like standards. If the whole idea, and I'd love to know what you think here, if the whole idea works, then I think there have to be a bunch of people talking together about how they specifically plug in, or how that scope. Because if I give you headless CMSs, for example,
Mm,
um, and if I give you like a front end, every headless CMS has a different sort of payload for what they send to different front ends. And so you can sort of think about that as like a Lego piece size, right?
yeah,
Every single headless CMS is like a, piece size. Every single e-commerce sort of startup website dev tool is sort of like a different piece. They don't all fit the same way into the same things. And so then you have all these different standards. And so it's difficult to like, have that sort of modularity or composability that you speak of. And being in the space for 3 years, what have you seen, or how do you sort of position yourself in such an environment where there's so many different choices and nothing really fits really well, and there's really no standard?
Um, I think going to get a standard for stuff like this with for-profit companies is going to be very, very hard. You've seen it with the browsers. I'm one of
Mm,
these older people that still know IE6 hacks and all that stuff. My brain is way too full with the bullshit from back in the day. It took a long time to get some standards and people to kind of comply. And I think in this case, maybe the strength of these smaller companies or these composable companies is actually the fact they can innovate and change all the time. And it's not that bad that there's not a standard. You just need
Mm,
to find a way to make them work together. And maybe that way is not keeping the CMS in the center, as it were, and then plugging everything in, and then the CMS company absorbing all the SLAs and doing all the work to get these things together. That might not be your approach. And this is literally why we started Uniform, where what we try to do is kind of integrate with all these systems, but super loosely coupled. And the developers can kind of choose how it connects. But the way we offer it is that it's always the same, but there's like a little middleware wrapper where you can map the data. And if you don't like one approach of whatever GraphQL comes out or JSON comes out, that you can actually then slightly change that, but still have it relatively loosely coupled. And that's a really new thing that doesn't really exist, because if you do it that way, um, you get an option, and I'm saying this is the only option, but the option you get is to compose your pages. So we use compose now in another method, as in I'm going to put stuff together on the page, and I don't particularly do that in the CMS. I don't have to. I can, but I don't have to. You can do all the design related data in the Uniform platform, and you just, for each component that you put on the page, you just point to another source, right? One is Strapi, likely a lot of them, but some could be Shopify. Another one could be a Cloudinary image or a TwigPix image, stuff like that. And so what that means is that your data that sits in all these systems becomes domain data, which means it's relatively simplified and it sticks there. And then in 2 years, when you come back, that data still works. Because what you see all the time now is people, because they don't have a place in all these headless systems where to really design a page as a content editor, they start to change the data models, right? So imagine you have a video in Strapi in a data model, which I have in a demo in a sec. I can show that.
yeah, I'd love to
And
see that.
sometimes you might want to have that video to be big because it's featured, right? It's the main thing. But then another time it's just in a list somewhere. So what people do is add a checkbox to the data model to say, make it big.
Mm,
But that checkbox means nothing in a year because you have now an iPhone app. How
yep.
does that work? Right? And that's a pretty interesting thing that's happening. And it's kind of usable. But if you do it on a small scale, it's all fine. But then when you go to multi-tenant applications with big systems with lots of CMS entries and you start to do that, you're going to have to like restart in 2 years or rip things out. And so if you kind of separate the concerns of where the data lives and where you create your pages, it doesn't really matter as much anymore, the JSON that comes out of the different places, as long as you
Yeah.
connect it in the right way. Did I
Oh,
just say a lot
interesting
of
sentence
magical
there.
things, or does it make
No,
sense?
no. I think a bit of both, and maybe we need to demystify some of that. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
said,
yeah.
your content and you said a really interesting sentence. Your content and your data live in different places. In
Yes.
this in this Strapi uniform context, which one is which?
Yeah. So basically, the idea would be, if you have interesting data models, please keep them in your Strapi. It's very important that if you have, for example, you have an event, let's say it's a concert, then there could be a data model for the artist, there could be a data model for the venue, there could
Yeah,
be a venue, and there could be the event itself. All that data modeling happens in Strapi. But then when you put that event on a page somewhere, how that looks, how it behaves, where it lives, in which context, that happens in Uniform.
interesting. I would
So if
really
it
love
has
to
like
see
a
that
blue
demo.
background or a red one, you don't put it in your data model in the CMS, because in a year, maybe you want green. It kind of doesn't make sense to have like this, like there's data that's you can just throw away, and there's data you have to keep as your domain model of the core of your business.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I feel like we're almost ready for a demo, just to give everyone more
Yeah,
context of
I
how
feel like
everything works.
I dove very deep in and like this is like the first 10 minutes.
No, no, I feel like everyone watching is having a great time. Hello
Oh,
again, just everyone who's just joined. I think we've had a couple of people. We're talking about composability. I'm Daniel from Strapi, and today we're hosting Tim from Uniform. If you have any questions, definitely put them in the chat. If you've got any comments, let us know. Tell us where you're from. We have one here, by the way, from 22 Pickle 2, who says, I also feel like monoliths are bulky, and we just have a ton of stuff I don't need. So absolutely
Very
agree with
true.
you there. Yeah. Great. So I have a bunch of questions about sort of like use cases that you're seeing, as well as like possible disadvantages of following such an approach. But I think we can get
Oh,
into
there are
a
many
lot
of
of
on
those.
both sides. So that's always interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
Maybe what I can do is rather than show you how I just did a quick demo with Strapi, what about I show you how I built my personal website that is kind of feature rich, where I can kind of nicely show the differences between what do I put in the CMS,
Yeah.
what do I put in my e-commerce, what do I put in my DAM system, and how do I build my pages? Does that make sense?
I think we can build up to that. I think we should start with sort of like showcasing the integration and just seeing
Okay,
how
sure.
the two work. And then we can dive a little deeper into like your website. Because I think it would be the perfect example for what like a fully fledged composable app looks like. Because I think
Yeah,
right now we've
exactly.
only talked about, the CMS portion of it, but I'd really love to see a lot of the other stuff like the DAM and the
So
other stuff
let's
that you mentioned.
let's start simple then. Let's start with the uniform platform where we have an integration into Strapi, and we kind of just have the data in Strapi, and we select that data and we add it into uniform. Let's start with
Okay,
that. Okay, cool.
absolutely. I
So,
think, let me just put your screen up.
yep.
There we go.
So I have you in this tab right here. So I cannot see you at the moment because I'm rocking one screen.
Don't worry.
So if anything is up, shout, and I'll just go here and we see everything 10 times. Okay.
Okay. You can hear
So
me, so I'll let you know.
yeah, it's all good. Thanks. So basically, this is I made an account at Uniform. This is my team, and it has multiple projects. And inside of this, this feels kind of like there's lots going on. We won't go into that now because the interesting thing is when you build a tool like this, kind of organically, due to how the tool is built, you get a lot of extra fun stuff that you can use, like personalization and other things. But let's not go there yet. So in Uniform, we have something we call integrations, and there's a ton of them already. And of course, Strapi is one of them. Some of them are not built yet, but people want them. And so you can see we have like analytics integrations or CDNs or commerce ones. And the whole idea is when you integrate these things, oh, there we have Strapi that's added to my project already. Basically, these become data sources for you to kind of play with and paint the picture of your website, right? Of a page, of a thing. And so you can see there's many different CMSs or DAM systems, but there's also data things to do personalization with, but we can talk about that a little later. And we have email integrations, search stuff. I use Algolia a lot, for example.
Yeah, I
And we have
really
some
love how
starters.
everything is sort of like, categorized, and so you have an idea of the different things you can add to
Yeah, because
your
before we didn't
application.
have that. We just had this, and it's
Yeah,
just a painfully long list, and you don't even know what everything is, right?
yeah, exactly.
We also added a few starters. So if you just want to get started and just say, hey, I want to do an e-commerce or like just a conference website, you can click that and see how we would model that data. Because
Okay.
as we said before, this is quite new stuff. This doesn't really exist just yet. But
Indeed.
anyways,
And just while we're on starters, someone asked, or someone before I came onto the stream was like, what does an example of a composable application look like in the context of, how developers are usually used to receiving starters? You have it on GitHub, you clone it, and you run this application. What does the experience look like for a composable application?
well, interestingly, for a composable application, that's many more wheels in many more cogs in the machine, right? Because you have all these composable elements that all do their thing. Like you can see locally now on my machine, here I have Strapi running, and then here my front end running. And so there's multiple things you have to deal with. And so we try to keep it quite simple where if you select one of these, I won't do it now because I might mess up my project. You can say
Yep.
getting started with like a GitHub repository of Uniform. And then what you can do is connect that to your Uniform project, just like you would do with Strapi and an API key and stuff. And then from there, it just works. But we also have stuff like you just click a Stack Blitz link and it
Yeah.
works. Or you can go fully manual. And that's what I did for the Strapi integration.
And
And
and now that you mentioned that, like I think there's well, at least with certain people who I've talked to about sort of like
mm,
where composability lies. I'll give an example of federation in the GraphQL world. You know,
sure.
it's the idea of getting a bunch of things and sort of like tying them into a single API and then having that one sort of like source be the thing that delivers it to your front end.
Yeah.
Um, it's sort of a similar concept, but I feel like on the spectrum of how involved is a developer to like from like very involved to like not very involved, or should I really care about this or should I not care about this? I feel like composability on like a scale of like 1 to 10, where 1 is developers really care or are really involved in the process, and 10 is like they aren't really involved. I feel like it's a 7. And correct me if I'm wrong. This feels
Oh,
like
I
something
think
where
right
people who
now, when
architect,
you know what, when you look at
systems.
it right now, I think
Yeah,
it's a 2.
it's a 2.
Because, yeah,
Tell me
if you
why.
look at composable architectures right now in our space, big projects that are all composed,
Yeah,
they're completely tech first. Developers have connected these things together and have put everything in code connected, and they query all the things in their code base. It's fully tech first. If you are a content editor that wants
yeah,
to deal with something composable and you want to make a page, you have to have knowledge of all the things that are connected, and you need to know how they're connected. And in a lot of cases, and not in the most ideal scenarios, but in 80% of the scenarios, a content editor that wants to make a new campaign page or something that has products on it, maybe a hero from one CMS instance and legal copy from another CMS instance. They have to call the developer and say, can you make me this page in this Jamstack site and just connect these things for me? Or they have to go into the CMS and completely understand how these integration fields work and then kind of figure it out and then hope that whatever they put together works. It's a fully tech first approach. And that means maybe I mean 1 rather than 2. Does it make sense if I say it that way? Or do you maybe just not agree?
I think I'm still a bit bullish, but maybe I need to see. I mean, I'm still on the rocks about whether or not it is. From your explanation, I would say it's shifted from like a 7 to a 5. But I think this is why we're doing
Okay,
this.
okay. Yeah, and you know
You know,
what? I might understand why you think it's higher, because the CMS itself recently, especially CMSs have taken on more jobs of making this easier for content editors and marketers and stuff.
yeah,
Right? You have these integrations and you have this really nice editing workflows and stuff. But that doesn't always mean it's easier, because if, let's say, you have multiple CMS vendors that you chose because you have one legacy and one new one, how does preview work?
yeah,
Again, you need to do some sort of tech thing to make it work. And what we try to do with Uniform is to make it more so everybody understands it. So it's not an integration, but it's an orchestration. So content
mm,
editors don't really have to understand their Shopify integration. It kind of just works. But I haven't shown it to you yet. So I'll go there in a sec.
yeah.
But
So I guess your goal
most
now is to get me to agree with you saying 1 by the end of
you don't
this.
have to, but different
I mean,
strokes
you
for
can
different
try.
folks, right? But
No, that's
the
true.
interesting
Some things
the
absolutely
interesting
don't
bit
work for
here
some
is,
people.
for Uniform, we don't want developers to be unhappy with the experience, because we are all developers at Uniform. We're building this stuff to kind of bring back these groups that have drifted apart a little bit. So we have zero opinions of how you build this thing. We don't care where you host it, how you query stuff, what language you use. It will just work, and you just get some SDKs from us if you want. You don't even have to use them, right? It's super important.
That's an interesting approach. Okay, let's get into this then.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's kind of every tech problem you have, we have 30 solutions, which is not always the easiest thing, because we are completely agnostic. We
yeah,
don't tell you how to do it. We have opinions. So if you want, we can tell you. I likely will do that right now, but you can use it in any way you want. So our integration here is just, I run it localhost right now because it's easier. I
yeah.
have an API token and I just put it in here. For people that know Strapi, it literally, you know this stuff. It comes from here, right? from my API stuff here.
There you go, API tokens. And we just released V2 of our API token, by the way. And so
Ah,
you have much more control over,
I have seen that. It's really
yeah,
cool. Look, all this stuff. You can do all the things.
exactly.
It's
I think
very
that's
cool.
really cool.
Yeah, I noticed that. Uniform released something similar also for the API token that we have because, well, you haven't seen it yet, but there's lots of stuff you can do
Yeah,
inside, and some people are not allowed to do certain things and other people are. So
absolutely.
we now have this. And so in Uniform, we have two ideas. One is you make a composition from a canvas. So this is your canvas, like your empty painting. And on it, you make a composition. And on these compositions, you add components. And these components are actually just configurations. Like I made this page is actually also a component, but with the checkbox that you can add other components to it. So we make a slot, and inside the slot, you can choose whatever components you want to put in, right? So I decided to make a page that can hold a videos component that on its own can have two other videos, right? So two videos. And this video, as you can see, is connected to my Strapi. And I've actually selected one of the videos. And so this interface is connecting to Strapi and finding the content items that I am interested in to edit in my video component. And so what we tend to do in Uniform is we point to these sources. We don't store the data at all because that's not the point of an orchestration service of composable architectures, right? We only say this is where it is, and the content editor can kind of see this and not have to understand how Strapi works, right? Because if I now add, let's say, another CMS or maybe commerce, whatever, it looks similar to this. And so we can actually add titles and other fields because this my videos or whatever videos, this field here, it doesn't really belong in a CMS because it's very specific to this component on this page of how this page looks, right? And so, but a video itself is a thing you will use next year. That's a thing that always exists. So that's your domain data, and that's what you point to. And so let me just quickly show you how these components work. Please interrupt if I'm saying strange things.
Absolutely.
Are we still here? We're still good?
Yeah, we're still good.
Okay, great,
I
great.
was just saying absolutely.
Yeah, it cut off, so I was wondering. Anyway, so here I have a videos component, and you can add a few parameters, and you can add these slots, right? So you can kind of just say, this one is for videos, and only video components can go in, because I have a video configured, so that's the one that can go in. And so
Okay.
when you actually have a look at that video component itself, you see this is an entry value that is actually Strapi content.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can also make another one that says whatever,
So
anything you want.
you've got a request, by the way, from someone. They would love you to sort of maximize your screen and zoom in.
Oh, of course. I'm sorry. If I zoom this in, is this better?
I think that's perfect.
Okay,
Even
great. Sorry about that.
no worries.
So this parameter is connected to my Strapi instance. And it knows I have a video instance of a content item in Strapi because I have that here, right? So when I actually go to my content manager, this is a video. There's also a user here, right? And so this is a thing I just created in Strapi, and that connects to Uniform. So I told it in the settings, it's for video. And I chose to have this field in Strapi as my display title in the Uniform setup. So
Okay.
there's this title here. So it looks nicer. You can see what you're dealing with. And
Exactly.
all these integrations that you saw just now, that huge list, they all offer certain types of parameters. Like an Algolia search query is a parameter. There could be, if you wanted to get like 15 Strapi items, but only the latest, that's a different type of parameter. Or if you wanted to select an image item from Cloudinary, that's a parameter or a product. And so with that, you can just kind of, what you see here is basically just a JSON configuration of a thing.
Yeah.
that then becomes a component that you can add in here. So perhaps we can make a new component for a user, and I'll show you what, because there's this user, right?
Yep.
So maybe I can just add
Well,
a new user.
that is default. Maybe we can
Yeah,
create
exactly.
a new
Oh, we can
with
make
the
a new
content
one.
types builder. Yeah.
What shall
On
we
the
do?
event side, let's do, I don't know, events. You told me you were preparing for events, so let's do events.
Okay, let's make an event. So what does an event have? Title.
Always, of course. We
Yeah,
also have dates.
a date, exactly.
And you have to add a
Oh, that's
the type.
nice.
Yeah.
I'm seeing this for the first time. I'm almost ashamed. This works so well.
Oh yeah, thank you. Live footage of Tim
Yeah,
doing
this
and
is like
working with
Tim
Strapi.
trying out some stuff.
Yeah.
You want to like, what should we add? Do we need to make a relation to maybe an artist or something, or to a video that's already existing?
Ideally, yeah. Maybe that's a recording. And so
So
very soon, actually, we have well, I'm sure you'll see, but we'll be releasing a new version of our relations. But
this
yeah,
is
I think
actually nice. So let me check. So there's user here. And I
so.
kind
We'd
of,
have to create you have to switch to video on your right. So you just, there's a drop down and then you select video, and so now
yeah. Oh,
event
there
has
it
one
is.
video.
And then
Exactly.
how do
And
we
so now
make
you need to
a
pick the relation.
okay, so this has event has and belongs to one video.
Yep.
That makes sense, right?
I think so. Every event has a video.
Nice.
Or rather, events have multiple videos, I guess, because if you
Yeah,
have
we could
multiple
do this,
switches,
right?
yeah.
Oh, wait, no, it's the other way around. It's like this. No. There it is.
Relation.
Yeah, well, this is interesting how this stuff works.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
an
think it's a
event
pretty
has
cool
many
feature.
videos. I think this is the way to go.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yep, that is perfect.
Okay, let's keep it simple like this.
Well, we have some love coming from Alex, who's here for the Strapi Uniform magic to close off the week. Yeah, we're having a composable party.
Oh, Alex, we're going so deep, man. We just made like internal connections from Strapi components and stuff. Good fun.
Mm.
Oh, it's not Strapi collection types. I need to use the right words here.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
so we have
actually
a,
do have components, actually,
oh,
but
there you
that's for
go.
another time.
Oh, I see that here. Yeah, but for later. So let's
Mm.
actually make an event. Is why not?
Jamstack on. Yeah.
Preparing for that now, so let's do it.
Oh, really? You should meet our team. We'll be. I don't know if you'll be going there,
Yeah, I
but
will. Yeah, yeah. I'll speak in person.
awesome. So if you are, so you should definitely say hi to our team.
Oh, I
I'm
will
sure you'll meet a
definitely
couple
do
of them.
that. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. If you're watching and are going to Jamstack.conf, come to our booth.
Yeah, get in the marketing the moment you can. Awesome.
Indeed.
You can also come to our booth, and Alex will also be there. So I have now added the title, the date, and here I set the relation up. Okay.
Mm,
So now that we have this in place, we have one entry. Let's actually make a new component in Uniform.
let's do that.
So
And
we're
so,
going completely off the cuff here. So I hope whatever we're doing that it's working. But that's
fingers
it's just
crossed.
fun.
It's okay if things go wrong.
Yeah. And let's do an event component. And now it's always a matter of selecting an icon, right? It's always the hardest thing.
Oh, indeed.
For now, let's just say, let's make a parameter for the event itself. And let's call it an entry because it comes from the CMS. And there is a Strapi content, right? And it now finds, hey, there's an event. Do we allow multi-select? That's so you can actually select 5 events for one parameter. Or well, for now, maybe just one because we
Let's
also
do
just
one.
made one. And I think we can use title here also. Let's see, what did I name this title? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, you named the title.
I hope it's with a capital. We'll have to check.
Hey, you should be. If something is wrong, I'm sure Uniform will
Oh,
tell
we'll
us.
see. All right, so let's go back to our page. And now I realized I have to allow that this component that we just made goes into this content this slot.
Okay.
So let's go back there and actually say in this slot here to allow another component, which is the event. So now here's a little bit of just governance of what components can go where. So now
Okay.
let's just add an event.
And so now you can pick event.
And so it doesn't find it. That's interesting. So
you need to go back to Strapi. I think you did not
oh,
publish.
I already know. I didn't publish.
Exactly.
Yeah,
There you
I've
go.
done that before when I made the demo. I think we just refresh.
At least we're making sure that things that shouldn't be seen are not seen still.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man.
Yeah, you should
Yeah, there it is.
jams.conf.
And so I haven't set up the preview ability now, but I'll show you in a demo a little later for a more fully fledged approach, how that works. So let's save and see what actually came out. So this is what Uniform stores, right?
Okay.
So this is my videos composition. And I hope this is big enough. And so in our content slot, we now have an event type component, and the parameter on it is an entry into Strapi, right? So there's our ID. So we don't actually store that much.
Not at
It's
all, it seems.
just what it is and what ID it is. And then when we look at these two videos here, in the slot for the videos, we have this ID, and then there's another ID. And these IDs basically just go into Strapi. And so let's have a look at our front end to see what is coming out when I query this thing. Because what you need to do when you query the front end, that asks for, okay, I'm going to go to slug home, which is this whole thing. It's going to give me this information, but that's not enough just yet. I need to enrich this, and we call this enhancing. So we kind of enhance this data so the real data appears. So let's do. Okay, so this is the state of where I left it when we started adding a new component. You can see that here, right? So before I have this my videos with the two video titles that I added. And as you can see here, there's actual information. And before in here, it's literally just an ID, right? This is the video, the first video, this one.
Yep.
And so what we have is we call this enhancing. So when we go to the code, and I'll just make this a bit bigger, this is a Next.js application. And so we have some helper functions. So we get the composition by slug. And right now, this is actually server-side props, just for now to keep it easy.
And what are you using? Is this like a
This
SDK?
is Next.js. Did that answer the question?
No, I mean, like you said, you have a couple functions. Are those specific to Uniform?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Apologies. So basically, from Uniform, I have a Uniform Canvas SDK.
Perfect. Okay.
And they give you a few things. Like if you want to do Strapi on the front end, you have your Strapi SDK NPM package, right?
Yeah. It depends. There is an SDK. But
oh, yeah, exactly. You don't have to use it, obviously.
We have opinions, but you don't have to use it.
It's exactly the same thing. And for us, we have a Canvas client. It just makes things easier.
Yeah.
You can also just do this in Node.js and just do a fetch or whatever you want. But it's easier because we offer a few things that just help you out of the box, right? And so in our Canvas client, we get this composition by slug. And in this case, this function just accepts a slug. And so what it all does, it runs something called enhancers. So if we go to this function here, let's say, yes. So you can see right now, because this was a very quick demo I was running this afternoon, I get the Strapi client, and I set my API host and my token. And with this client, I can now query Strapi. And this function comes from Uniform, and you just give it the client, and this function here, this SDK function, will do the query for you. And it will do it in a super smart way. And it might combine queries and things like that. And so basically what this thing does, this helps you query. And what comes back is a composition, like, of course, from before we get this composition. And this composition property is that array that's basically quite empty. That's this guy.
Yeah.
And what we do is these enhancers enhance that composition with real data.
Okay,
And
and
that
so
real data comes from Strapi. And so we have
interesting.
to, and so this is your middleware layer. And you can
I
host
see.
this anywhere you want. Right now it's in my app, but you can make this, put this on a microservice somewhere. You can cache it, or you can put it on the CDN edge, close to
Yeah,
the user.
that
And
makes
this,
sense. And so this is where you don't really sort of like store the data. You sort of just
no,
point to it.
Uniform will not do that because we want developers to be completely free in how to choose to do that. And right now, the only thing it does is a Strapi enhancer. So it finds the Strapi parameter type. And based on that, it says, hey, but this component comes from Strapi because it figures that out from the fact that the type is actually Strapi
Strapi
content.
content.
It knows this. This prop from our package actually says Strapi content.
Mhm.
And then it will just say, okay, for this component, it will find the ID and all this entry stuff, gives it to the client, which is Strapi's client, and it will just fire off, get the stuff, and all the information comes in. And the interesting thing here is with Uniform, if you now also add Shopify, if you add Contentful, I don't know if you want to, not probably not the smartest move, but you could. Or if you want to use, let's say, BigCommerce or Cloudinary, you
Mm.
just load another thing from Uniform Canvas and you just say, okay, so for Strapi, it's this one. But how about for
We've got Alex with the jokes.
oh yeah,
Uh,
I don't see the chat, so I don't know.
I'll put it here. He's basically said insert enhance meme, which is very funny. The typical
Okay,
hacker
I'm
stereotype.
going to check that in a sec. But
Yeah, yeah,
basically,
that's
you can
right.
say for my Shopify one, I'm going to make a Shopify enhancer, and for my BigCommerce one, a BigCommerce one. And
Yeah.
so all your data mapping happens here. Because what's really interesting, and this thing I haven't done just yet here, you can actually, there's the word again, you can compose with these things.
Okay.
So what you can do is you can actually get this one
And add
and get
compose.
the compose function here. And what that means is you can say, okay, from Strapi, I get just the raw data from Strapi. And then I make another enhancer that grabs that raw data and maps it to the props that my components like. Which means my components shouldn't have any knowledge of Strapi at all. It's just a front-end component that renders a video or an event. And so what you can do is map that data from whatever comes from Strapi into something else. I haven't done that in this demo. So currently, whatever I load here in this video is literally the thing that comes back from Strapi.
Yeah.
But what I could have done is that it would only return the title and the URL and nothing else, because my component basically should only care about these things. And with that, what makes that very interesting is that you can actually say, I start without the CMS. I just let the front-end developers build a site. And
Yeah.
then when I add Strapi, I literally just have to add this enhance function and add
And then all your
Strapi
data
and
from the
then map
CMS.
to the existing stuff.
Exactly. Interesting. That's really cool.
It's really different, right? And right now, this whole thing lives on its own. But actually, if you look at a project that I am running, let me just find if I can do that. I actually have a compositions API that
When
I
you say
built
that,
on a
I'm
for sale
thinking
app.
I'm thinking Vue.js composition API.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. But this is like, yeah, the words just they go everywhere. It's a problem. But like this
No, but
URL,
one thing, I really love how intentional Uniform seems about all the words, enhance,
we are
compose.
really taking a lot of care about that, and we've changed this messaging to make it reflect better. So you'll
Yeah,
see at Gems.conf when we announce all our new stuff that it becomes a lot simpler than this, but still has
impressive.
the same, ethos.
Can't wait to see that.
That's a quick marketing push there.
Nice teasing. More
um,
reasons.
what this does is I have created a Vercel serverless function
Hmm.
to query composition. So I can just say slug is about. Oh, I need the slash. And now it says no. This is my about page, and this is the enriched or enhanced composition of what my personal website has. And because it lives here, I have built this website. This is actually in Nuxt 2 with
Yeah.
Vue.js, my website. But when I go here, this is my website. If it behaves, yes. This is my website in Next.js with React against
That
the
is
same
impressive.
compositions. And suddenly I get to choose whatever I want because my components, they don't know anything about my integrations now. And this thing that I just had this can live on maybe on the CDN edge,
Yeah.
in Netlify with Dino, and then it will be freaking fast. And we know that Strapi is super fast as well. And then maybe we add a little bit of caching if we wanted to. And suddenly I can make an SSR website that doesn't know about its sources. It just has to query this thing. And
And it
so
gets all the data it wants. And you can
exactly.
add more and just template it, and you always have this sort of composition of everything else in this orchestration.
Yeah. And
That
when I
is
change it from
very powerful.
uniform, this data just changes. And you can see this is actually a contentful entry, but an image from contentful doesn't look like this at all. It has a lot of fields. I just cleaned it up with this enhancing.
Okay.
Perhaps this might be a good moment to show what this website looks like when I content edit it, because I spoke a lot about the separation of concerns of where the data lives in the CMS and where
Yeah.
the design lives in the website, right?
Yeah.
So
Before you do that, just
sure,
is it possible to, like, the app you added, if you can go to the web page, the front end, you mentioned just having sort
this
of
one.
like the title. Is that the only field you have in Strapi with it? You only have the title, right? For your videos.
For now, actually, I think I had more. Look, for my video, I have a slug, a title, and a URL.
Is it
So,
possible to, like, how I'd just love to see how easy it would be to add the URL on the front end
oh yeah, of
and sort
course.
of like enhance it that way.
So right now, if I wanted to do the URL, I could just do this. But this one is not enhanced at the moment. Oh, it is enhanced actually. But it's not I haven't mapped it to like nice properties. I
Yeah,
didn't have the time, to be fair.
that's
But like
fine.
right now, I just got this in my props of the URL. So let's go back to my local. And oh, there's your URL.
Amazing.
That's
That
how easy it is. And so you just like these props are a little bit big now because this is just how you retrieve it from Strapi.
yeah.
You could actually make an enhancer to clean that up a little. I don't know if I will struggle doing that on a stream. I could try to copy paste some code, but I'm not sure that people want to see that. But it
No, I mean,
is.
I don't doubt that you can, but I just noticed I really got caught up in just like how amazing this is. But we're
Let me
at
see if I have a quick
47 minutes,
example for
and
you. I
sure,
think I
sure.
have. Yeah. Let
I
me
also
just.
just want to leave some time for questions. We've had
Oh yeah,
people,
feel free
and I
because
want to know. I want to make sure you take advantage of Tim and all his
we're
composability wisdom.
showing
So
new stuff. This is a little
yeah.
crazy, right?
And so if anything isn't making sense or you'd like some clarification, this is the perfect time to just drop a comment and we'll talk about it now. And if we don't get to that, I think before we end the stream, we'll share the socials of both Tim and
Um,
I, and so you can reach out.
this is a pretty interesting one. While we wait, if any questions pop up, right? So
Yeah.
this is a big commerce enhancer, right? This is a headless e-commerce. So it has the normal enhancer to query the product, but then I have a big commerce model cleaner here. You see, I'm
Mm.
composing again with data this time. And this model cleaner is actually a very simple function that gets the parameter from Uniform. It gets all the things that it wants from it, and then it literally just returns it the way it wants. And you can see normally the images have a lot of data with URL underscore standard, and it's an array, as you can see.
Yeah.
And for this little demo, I cleaned that model in such a way that I just return image, which is this thing. And then I just return the parameter value again. So you're basically just modifying whatever comes. And if I now had, let's say in this description, some like rich text HTML, but shown in JSON, which a lot of CMSs do, you can
Yeah.
actually write a little function here that make this real HTML, or remove all the spaces, or add dad jokes, or whatever you want. That's what these kind of, you can compose with data this way. And I have projects where I literally just I grab a video from a CMS,
Yeah.
then with the ID from the video that I get from the CMS, I go to YouTube, And in there, I query all the things I need. And then in the third one, I make the data work for my components, and then I return it. And so if you do this the right way, you can actually have backend developers work on your compositions, like on your enhancing and all your data modeling, and front-end developers just build front-end, as long as they know what props need to appear. Does it
This
make
is
sense when I go
this
that
this
deep?
makes sense. It's just it's a lot to take in, and there's just
Oh
so
yeah,
many
I
good
know.
ideas coming up, and you know, I there's a lot right now, but it's lovely. I feel like we need to definitely have a follow up. But I think like slowly my mind is changing. I'm starting to see how much more dev work goes into making the composition and enhancing, and just even out of the orchestration. So
Yeah, there's
uh,
kind of a lot going on, and the thing is, like I'll show you right now here in Uniform, what we do is we allow you to have tools to do that in a relatively easy way,
yeah.
but we also allow these content editors to have a lot more fun with that. Because when I now hit preview here, go to another tab, and I'll just make that 50-50. And so now this is Uniform, my project in Next.js in preview mode. You can see the icon here is lit up.
Mm,
And so basically, now I can change any source here, and you will see that reflected on my live site, right? It's in preview mode. So what I could do is, if I don't like this hero, you see I have a Cloudinary hero image here. So let's remove this and add another media item.
okay.
I might have to log in, yeah, as always, right?
One password to the rescue.
Oh no.
You forgot your master.
No. Doesn't happen
Oh no.
often. Here we go.
There we go.
Basically, what this now does allows me to select another media item for that hero here. And I think I have some nice French guy somewhere.
Sure. I remember when
Yeah.
we were talking about the promotion, we were supposed to practice our terrible French, but
Oh
I
yeah,
feel like
exactly.
I feel like the audience doesn't want to hear that, so it's fine.
No, we're fine. But what I just did, I literally clicked save. This is now not published, but this is draft mode. And that
Yeah.
image just appeared on my website. And so if I wanted to have another contentful item, I could just, I have this weird thing here. Hit save. And now suddenly that changed. And
Cool.
so what I can do here is, like, for example, this one has like this blue background. So when I go here and I say, you know what, I want a dark background. This Uniform is the place where you make these things happen. You see, now it became dark. The CMS, why would you put the fact that it's dark in your CMS? It's based on how your website should look, right? And so
Mm.
this one, now you saw a bunch of stuff with contentful, but if I wanted another source, let's add a product. And so let's make that light and call it Strapi is awesome. Well, I need to type correctly. And this is BigCommerce now. And this looks identical, right?
It's the same
No, but
experience for
same
multiple.
experience. I don't have to understand how this works. And when I hit save now, there's my products. And you can kind of do a lot of fun stuff. And I haven't even shown the other things that make this very cool, but we don't have time. I
Yeah.
can click personalize this, right? And based on that personalization, I can actually say, if you might have an interest in the fact that I do a lot of conference speaking, I can do different products. And that
Yeah.
is rendered on the Netlify edge. And then you have personalization even without JavaScript.
That
And
is
that
pretty
works so
interesting.
well because we have this whole system here. You have all the sources in play. And it becomes kind of more of this universal thing for personalization and for content editing and preview. Like, this is a preview system that uses WebSockets, and it just looks at the differences. Even if I now go into the CMS and change something there, a webhook is sent and the preview is updated. So I can do blog post writing in Strapi and see the updates here. Okay,
You
that
know
was a
what?
lot of stuff.
It was a lot, but to be honest, the only thing I've been thinking about for the last minute is I saw your Tim tries, and I'm
Yeah.
just so excited because like seeing everything that this can do and seeing everything that Strapi can do, I really want to make a Tim tries Strapi happen, and make that
I
a
like
series.
that because I love the trim try stuff because I've what basically it looks very similar to what we just did. Make a component in Strapi,
Yeah,
figure it out, put it on the page, see what happens. And sometimes it sucks. But Tim tries is one take. So I will tell you.
yeah.
But sometimes I'm stupid, and then I'll also say that. Right?
No, I mean that's the beauty of it, seeing how things actually happen outside of the scriptedness. So, I'm up for it if you're up for it. Let's. I'm sure we'll get some time to chat.
100%. Because I
Uh,
do two types of Tim tries. It's or me alone. I'll
yeah.
just try something based on the docs. But I just did that with Strapi, and it's so good. It's a boring video. It literally just
Oh, you
works.
recorded
Like,
it?
no, I didn't, but I could. So what another one is that's nicer is I tend to do these Tim tries as well with the person that created the tool. So
Nice.
you could literally just tell me this is what we've done.
Yeah.
Tell me how it works, and while you tell me, I'll do it live. And if it goes wrong, we fix it together.
I love that idea.
Let's do
It
it.
sounds very fun. We should definitely do that. And also, we have about 4 minutes before we end the stream.
Time is
Thank you,
flying.
Trung. I know time is flying. It's been a lot to take in. Thank you, Trung. They appreciate everything we've said. They love this type of walkthroughs, and so yeah, hopefully we can do a lot more of these. You mentioned the Medusa folks. We'll probably have the Medusa folks come and talk about what's new on their end also.
Oh,
Um,
and that works really well as well. I did a
yeah,
Tim tries actually for Medusa. That was on
yeah.
my homepage, by the
That's
way.
the one
It's
I
that
saw. That's the one I saw.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It works extremely well as well, and Uniform
Yeah,
will integrate with them also.
yeah, that's beautiful. We've been talking to them about their composability approach also, and
Oh, they're
um,
full on. It's great. If you check that video, you'll see that I'm installing three things at the same time from Medusa, but it's so composable that it just works. It's really fun.
yeah, no, it's really really lovely to just. It's a lot to take in. That's why I really want to do these
Oh
trim
man,
tries.
I think I spoke for an hour straight. It's crazy.
I mean, it's great. Usually we're like, we need content, but this time we're like,
Oh no,
there's not enough
there's
time. We don't need to go any deeper. So, the pleasure has
exactly,
been
and
ours, and I think everyone
thank you.
has really loved this.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. And so before we end things, any questions, any questions from anyone in the audience, anything you'd like? And I think before that, I'm just going to share your socials also. Let me try and stalk your Twitter and put this in the chat so everyone can follow you if they've got any questions. What are
Awesome.
some, I think maybe let's end on a somewhat balanced note.
There we
I would
go.
love to hear the disadvantages of such an approach, and then some closing thoughts for where you'd like to see composability go.
Sure. So there are disadvantages for sure. And the main thing is that everything is much more fragmented now, which means if you are a person that's going to start a project like this, you better know your stuff, right? It's not like, let's go to WordPress.com, hit go, and it just works. You actually have to understand what these APIs do, how this stuff works. You need to have a higher level view of what an architecture actually is. It's no longer a JavaScript for loop, and that's what you're dealing with. It's actually understanding how data flows. And if you look at customers doing this stuff, the in-house customers, like the tech people, they need to know their stuff much more than they had before. So there's a bigger, how do you say this? There's a bar you have that's a bit higher to get started. Once you're started, it's all awesome. Everybody's happy. But you have to get started, and it's a little harder. And that's why my job is to talk an hour like this and show the magic and help teach. And so that's the more balanced version because it is harder. There's a lot of moving parts, right?
Indeed.
And so
I
closing
love it.
thoughts is this is very new. And the fact that you design your page in a different place than in your CMS, I need to say this is not the thing you have to do. You can do it. And you can still also do it in Strapi. It works really nicely together. It just, you know, elevates both. And so I think it's new and we just have to try more stuff. And I'm going to show this at conferences.
Yeah.
I have a really cool demo coming out, which is not a demo, but a full blown website where I show tutorials. And it's fully personalized and it uses all these tools. And in the talks, I show how it works. So I would love for people to check that out and see if it inspires them, hopefully.
Yeah. That is some lovely closing thoughts, Tim.
Thank you.
You've been amazing. Thank you so much for coming and telling us about composability. and showing us that very beautiful demo. I'm excited to do more Strapi uniform stuff,
Oh,
and
we
so
should. Yeah, yeah,
I'll
100%.
definitely be bothering you about getting back on stream, or at least doing a team tries.
Great.
And yeah, just helping preach the composable message, because I really do think it's a very interesting approach, and there's benefits, there's disadvantages, but if it works for you, jump on. So
Exactly. That's what it
yeah.
is.
Indeed. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Follow us on Twitter if you want to see a lot of our other Let's Talk About It series talks. Very soon, we might be having one from Medusa, and you can check out our YouTube and Twitch if you'd like to see a lot of what we do. I was just telling Tim before, our YouTube is like, I'm just proud about how vast of like content machine it is. There's so many really interesting videos about, so many different topics across content. So if you're into that type of thing, do check that out. It's been Daniel and Tim. Thank you so much.
Cheers.